So I'm going to go over this real quick and then we'll go into the lesson. Here's what I need you to understand. This new concept is a credit card, right? What is a credit card? You need to think of a credit card as something similar to a loan, right? So you borrow money from somebody and then you pay it back, right? But you got to remember that it's something similar to a loan. You're literally borrowing money from someone who you don't know or you have a business acquaintance with, and you are using it to buy something that you want or you need. And then later you're going to be responsible for paying that money back. Right? It does sound pretty simple, doesn't it? Okay? But you got to understand there are certain ways this thing works. Now, one of the things that happen when you borrow that loan, when you borrow that money, is the first thing that you're going to get is a bill. And one of the advantages of this bill is that you know exactly what you owe. And you can pay off the money right away or before the due date to avoid penalties, right? When you do that, your credit score increases and you get rewards for paying off your debt early. But now you got to ask yourself, what happens if you can't pay it off all at once, right? Then what the bank will allow you to do, or the credit card will allow you to do, is they will allow you to pay the, and you can think of this as your loan being paid minimally, paying a minimum amount every month on or before the due date. Now, if you can do that, yes, you won't get any penalties. But if you do that consistently for months or years, you end up paying a lot of interest to the banks or the credit card companies. All right. Now, the crazy part is that when you think of it, some of these credit cards interests are about 25 to 28, 27% on average for the year. That's a lot of money that you're paying out to the banks. Okay. Most mutual funds don't make that kind of money in a year. So it's better to be out of debt and saving money than having debt and saving money, right? It's kind of crazy. I mean, like, you can technically save and still put money away, but if you have a big debt, you may have to stop saving for a while to get rid of that debt, as that debt far outweighs the returns that you can make on your mutual funds or stocks. All right, let's move on to the lesson for the day. The other thing that I want to talk about is this thing here. This is your chip. This is your credit card. We now have these chips. We have our credit card numbers. We have our names, and we always have this date of expiry. When that date of expiry happens, your credit card sends you a new credit card. Now, this number on here on the back is called our CVC code. If you have a credit card, make sure that you sign it. There's usually a hologram on the back side of the credit card or your debit card, because sometimes your now debit card doubles as a Visa card as well. All right, let's move on to the lesson for the day. So now the question is, how do we manage these credit cards? Okay. We talked about credit cards and what it is, right? Now your question should be, this is one of the things I would have done in a regular class. I would talk about who should use a credit card. You want to buy a house or a car, you need a credit history, right? Credit cards help to build that, right? You need to try to pay these things on time and try to have a minimal amount of debt or a manageable debt. Now, the other thing that you should understand is who should not use a credit card. If you can't pay off the debt within months or you don't have a job, you shouldn't be using your credit card, okay? It's a bad thing. The interest rate gets ridiculous. Some people have done it before in order to balance their bills out. Yes, that happens, but you want to try to not do that, okay? Let's talk about this guy Ferd, okay? The information found on the back of Ferd's monthly bill. Remember, there's a monthly statement that's given by your credit card showing how much you owe to the credit card company, okay? The information found on the back of Ferd's monthly statement for a credit card issued by his bank is shown. So if I look at that, it tells you some information, right? The statement is issued on the 8th of each month, okay? And it says the grace period is the number of days that you have from the date of the statement, okay? You notice it's from the date of the statement, where you don't have to pay any interest on that bill, on any stuff that you came up with for that month. Okay, if you can pay that off in 21 days, within 21 days, you're good to go. Now, let's talk about what the payment due date will be. So you have, it's issued on the 8th. We have to add 21 days to that, which means it's the 29th day. So it's the 29th of each month that this thing is due. Okay? So now let's get into the nitty-gritty of all of this math work. Okay? So it says on the September statements, Ferd has a balance of $86.36, right? If you look at this bank statement at the back of this billing statement at the back, it says any number that's greater than $10, okay? Or we take 3% of the balance, okay? So in order to figure out, so we got any balance, we have a balance of 86.36, which is which is greater than 10, we have to take 3% of the balance. So this is what we have for 3% of the balance. Now, 9 times out of 10, you would think that the minimum payment is $2.59, okay? Here is the thing, okay? We need to make a minimum greater than 10, a payment of greater than $10. So you think it's $2.59, but that's not the actual answer. It can't be $2.59 because we have to make a minimum payment of greater than $10. So even though we know that 3% is $2.59, we're gonna have to actually put in a payment of $10. For this thing, okay? So that's what greater of $10 or 3% of the balance. So the minimum payment every month has to be $10. But anything bigger than $10 that we owe, we have to make sure that our calculation for our interest payment is about $10. Okay. Now let's go and take a look at this next one. It says in the October statement, Ferd's balance now is $462.18. I guess he's not managing his money very well. So pause the video, calculate it, and tell me, does he pay $10 or does he pay a certain amount of money? All right, for this last bit, we have 3% of 462.18, right? So now we go 0.03 times 462.18, we get 1387. So remember, it was a minimum payment of $10 or 3% of the balance. So we're going to say 1387 because it's a greater of $10 or that balance, and that balance is greater than $10. So now let's go and take a look at question D, which deals with us figuring out when we have to pay this thing off. Okay, so if it takes 3 days for the bank to process, so when you hear the word process, we're actually talking about taking the payment and making sure it goes to the right person. What is the latest date that we can do this for? okay? So that we can make sure that we don't have any payments, so that we don't get any interest charged to our account. So in order to do that, so imagine we decided to pay it in full, right? So if you decide to pay your thing in full before the due date, no interest is charged, right? But if you pay a certain amount, then interest is charged on what? If you pay something less than the maximum amount, than the total amount of money, then you're going to owe some cash. Interest, I mean. So now we know that our bank takes 3 days. 3 days. It says 3 days to process. So we know that its due date is the 29th, right? And we need 3 days. 3 days for the money to get to the credit card company. So that means we have to take 29 minus 3, which gives us 26th. So that means for us, for October's bill, we have to pay on October 26th in order to pay no fees if we pay it in full. There it is. All right, so now the last problem says calculate the interest charged if the bill is paid 5 days after the due date. Okay. Now, Ferd paid his September bill in full. Okay. He made new purchases on September 15th. Okay. So here is the deal. We have to figure out the total number of days that we spend picking up all this, paying all our interest. So let's go and do that. Okay, so remember he paid his debt in full on the 15th. Okay, now, he paid his debt he bought it on the 15th, right? But his interest payments would have started on the 16th. So the 16th to the 30th is actually 15 days, right? Now, from October 1st to October 31st is a full 31 days. Now, remember that our stuff was due on the 29th, okay? And so it was due on the 29th. So on the 30th, that's 1 day, okay? 31st, that's a second day. November 1st, that's a third day. Okay, so that's November 1st, that's a third day. November 2nd, that's the fourth day. And November 3rd is the fifth late day. So that means we have 3 days in November for a total of 49 days. Oh my goodness. So in order to figure out how much we owe this, we have to use the compound interest. Remember, it's compound interest. So A is equal to P 1 plus I raised to the n. Now, the P value, we don't know what A is. We do know what P is. P is equal to 462.18. Okay. And now that we know that, okay, we can put that into our calculation, 462.18. All right. And now we have to go 1 plus whatever the interest rate is. In this case, I'm going to tell you that for all credit cards, they charge you monthly, but they charge you interest daily. So remember, our interest was 14.9%. So 0.149. But then we have to divide that by 365. And then our N value is equal to our 49 days. Okay, so now we just put all that information in. So we get 0.149 divided by 365, all raised to the power of 49.
And that's how much we get. So that means, therefore, our A value is going to equal $471.52. Okay. So the interest. So the interest that we pay is this. Well, 471.52 minus 462.18 gives us an interest of $9.34 for 49 days for being 5 days late. So don't miss your payments, kids. Don't miss your payments. All right. Work is done. And any work that you haven't done from 9.2, keep practicing that. Make sure you go and work through these problems here. Okay. Question number 10 is a little difficult, so if you don't do it, that's fine. But make sure you do questions number 2BD, 5, 6, and 9. Okay? Make sure you omit 9E. All right? Take care. Have a good day.